Hi everyone. So today I thought I would do something a little bit different and go over the gear that I've accumulated over my first year in photography, and I'll also try and go over some of the costs, but I'll probably just be listing it to the side as I go along because it's hard to kind of remember all those different things. So yeah, let's get started. So this isn't actually the first bag that I purchased. When I started off with photography, I didn't really have a bag. I thought I would want to get one as I moved around a lot, went on different hikes. So the first one that I got was actually this one. It's a $12 bag that I got on Facebook Marketplace. It's a single strap. It got the job done, and it was really neat because it had this side access point as well. And then the actual, I guess, room within it was also pretty good. I could put my camera, put another lens, and in the top I would fit some of my batteries and some extra peripherals that I needed. I really didn't have that much at that time. I still don't have that much at this time right now. And then I would use this, which is the case that came with the tripod that I'll show you later. And I would just sling this and the other bag over my shoulder. It would make my shoulder hurt a lot just because if I wanted to carry them on the same shoulder, the weight would kind of be unevenly distributed. And this lasted me for a while actually. Both these two bags, I used to carry them around, and yeah, I think at least half the year I spent on just these bags. But at the same time I was eyeing this bag, which is the Shimoda Action X30, and it's pretty expensive just by retail price. I think around $300 for the core unit within it as well. And I wanted to wait for some deal somewhere on eBay if it was used, something that would make the price go down because I just couldn't justify buying such an expensive bag. But then yeah, I saw a deal on eBay and I took it, and it turned out pretty well. I really like this bag. It's very versatile. I take it pretty much everywhere I go. It has pretty thick straps with adjustable, I guess, levels as well, especially if you're carrying a lot of weight. That comes in handy. It does have a back opening, which is really important for me because if you're traveling in areas with a lot of more people, you want there to be enough security that no one can access the camera from the back side or from the front side of the bag. And so this keeps to my back and the camera stays secure. So someone would literally have to rip the entire bag as well as any, I guess, buckles I bound as well before they could get to the camera. And then it also does come with these straps, which are really good because you really want the weight to be distributed to your hips more so than your back, especially with such a heavy load. It does have a lot of, I guess, different zips and different pockets, but we'll talk about that later. One other thing that I purchased recently is this capture camera clip from Peak Design, and it allows me to kind of put the camera onto my shoulder, onto the strap, rather than putting it back into the bag every time I want to. And this is really useful whenever I don't want to take out the tripod a lot, but I just want to hold the camera and take a lot of different photos, but I don't want to keep digging back into the bag all the time. Right, so let's get started with the bag. So the bag does come with this laptop sleeve, and I usually use it for whenever I'm traveling with the bag. Sometimes if I'm going to work and on a hike at the same time, then I will use this to carry my work laptop, and it comes in pretty handy. So the main camera that I use, well, the only camera that I use, is a Sony a6500. I've had it since the beginning, and it's done a really good job, actually. It's a crop sensor camera, 24 megapixels, and yeah, honestly, I think it was a good choice when I bought it. I bought it for both video and, I guess, photography, and it's done pretty well. I do have an L bracket and, I guess, another attachment here. So this attachment goes with the Peak Design capture camera clip, so I can hook it on whenever I need to, but it also fits into my tripod. And then this L bracket allows me to change the orientation of the camera on the tripod without having to move the tripod ball head itself. Attached to this is the Sigma 16mm, and I do use it for most of my wide angle landscape photos. It is pretty sharp, f1.4, so it has a pretty fast aperture. It is a crop sensor lens, so if I do need to upgrade to a full frame camera, then I will have to change this lens or keep on using it with this camera if I still have it at that time. But yeah, overall does a pretty good job. My main tripod is this Manfrotto Befree Live. It's an aluminum tripod, so it is a little bit heavier than carbon fiber, but it was much cheaper as well. And so I've actually changed the ball head that came with it. There used to be kind of a, I guess, three-way ball head. I'll show a picture of it somewhere up here. But yeah, that changed. I wanted to use the ball head just because I wanted to try it, and it has become a lot more easier than to manage 3 different levers that control 3 different things. And it's also a little bit more compact, and so I can attach it to my bag much more easily than the previous one. It did cost a little bit more on top of the actual legs themselves, but I found a good deal on eBay, and I think this should last me a pretty long time for this specific tripod. But yeah, it has pretty good height, and I can extend it when it's not in the wind. I will say though, it does have a little bit of a stability problem when I do fully extend it, but that's to be had with most tripods. So usually I'll keep it not fully extended. I found this tripod to be really good. Yeah, okay, so moving on. The lens that is usually attached to my camera most of the time is this Tamron 28-200 variable aperture lens. When you zoom in and out, you can easily tell that the lens is expanding, and that usually is an indication of the type of material used for the lens, as well as it being a variable aperture lens. But yeah, I found it to be the most versatile lens, and ever since I bought it, I haven't felt the need to buy a different lens because it's such a massive range, and even though it doesn't do the best job at the small focal length from 28 to maybe 50 millimeters, from 50 onwards, it does incredibly well, and I'm able to do a lot of my photography with just this one lens. So yeah, definitely a keeper for me. Yeah, so this is my one and only filter, actually. I know a lot of other photographers have a lot of filters and they're expensive. I didn't want to spend too much on it. What I wanted was a good filter that did both. So most of the time, you would want a circular polarizer filter, and this is actually both. So this is a variable ND filter and a circular polarizer, and most of the problems that happen when you have those two features built in the same filter is that it creates some image quality issues, and especially when you have such an expensive lens, you don't want to attach a cheap filter. But from all the reviews I read and looked into, this seemed to do the job really well, and I found it to work really well for me. And yeah, it's my go-to filter for a lot of my long exposures, for whenever I want to reduce the reflections using the circular polarizer. It does the job well, and I just keep it in this case and in my bag. I have this case here for my intervalometer, and I use it whenever I want to do something like a time lapse or bulb mode or really long exposures. And my camera doesn't have a built-in intervalometer, so this comes in really handy. I could use it as a remote as well, as in like I could set it on a timer, but my camera already comes in with 2 second, 5 second, and 10-second timer, so that usually is enough for me to run into the picture if I need to, but this is always there if I ever need to do more than that. Next up is this, which is my little, I guess, case for my SD cards. I don't have a lot. You can see there's like 12 slots, and I only have 2 of them filled. One of the SD cards is also still in my camera. I found that as I accumulate cards, it's good to have them in here just because you never know when you might run into issue. And one of the things that happened was one time I had taken the SD card out of my camera and just to import some of the images to my laptop, and I'd forgotten to put it back in. So when I went the next day to take some photos, I didn't have an SD card in the camera, and this came in really handy because I had some extra packed away. I don't anticipate filling the rest of them anytime soon, just because I have enough to get me by, and I don't take that many photos regularly where in between I wouldn't just put the photos into my laptop and back it up. Yeah, so this power bank, necessary for both me, my phone, necessary for both my phone and the batteries within the camera. I usually have a couple of different batteries, but just in case those ever run out, I do want to carry this along because it does charge the batteries while I'm able to still continue shooting with some of the other ones. So yeah, pretty useful, pretty handy. Does weigh a little bit. but I think its use is more than the cost of it. So let's see. This is stuff that I usually don't actually work with. This is my original lens, and I keep it just as a backup in case something happens. It's my Sony 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens, and yeah, I shot with it originally at the very beginning before I got my Tamron 28 to 200, and this one does a pretty good job, but it's just that low light conditions it doesn't do really well. And if I need to, I can take it out, especially for if I'm doing street photography and I just want to keep the camera in my pocket or in my jacket pocket mostly. I have the strap from Peak Design that I rarely use. Yeah, don't really use it that often. It came with the camera when I bought it first on eBay, and have used it on occasion when I need to handhold it, but rarely ever attach it because most of the time I'm taking photos on my tripod, or I can hold my camera for a little bit while it's off the tripod. This is something that I bought that I think has come really useful, which is a headlamp. Every, I guess, landscape photographer I think really needs to do this, especially if you go on hikes. It has 3 different modes, one for bright light, normal light, and this red light, which is pretty cool actually. I used it in my trip when I went to Acadia and I wanted to shoot the Milky Way, and it came in handy because everything was pitch black. That was the first time I was actually shooting in pitch black, and this came in really handy because I could then kind of see what I was doing at the time. It does come in handy a lot on hikes as well, and usually I haven't hiked that much during pitch black darkness, but it has come in handy on occasion when I've done that. All right, so this microphone and the cable that comes with it, yeah, I use it for recording videos, attaching it just to the camera itself. But recently I bought this lav mic here, and it has kind of taken over the job of this microphone itself. So keep it in here just on occasion because I think it does provide some usefulness when I'm in the wind or when I'm shooting pictures in the wind. But other than that, yeah, I keep it in here, use it on occasion. Oh, so that's actually everything in the main compartment. So let's close that up. Moving on to the front of it. There's this neat little zip here, and I keep a bunch of my smaller items here. So what I have is extra battery charger, and one other one. So usually when I'm out and I've run out of batteries, I will have my third battery, which is in my camera, be operating, and then I will use this to charge my 2 other batteries while plugged into my power bank. And so this comes in pretty handy. I haven't felt the need to get more batteries. I think these have been plenty for me, but obviously different use cases will come up and I will realize a mistake I made and probably will end up buying things, but I probably won't end up trying to fix that mistake before it happens. Microfiber cloth, another microfiber cloth, really useful because you run into issues with, I guess, dust everywhere. A little Allen key for my tripod, a little cable for, I guess, different purposes, another Allen key. So yeah, just a couple of little things in here that I use. I really should have a better way to organize my cables and small items, but it's not enough to actually make me want to try something different. So I also have this tripod that I take on occasion. I haven't taken it out as much, but I anticipate that I'll be taking it out more and more when I want to do more B-roll, when I want to go on a trip that I can't take my bigger tripod on. It's not as sturdy. It's really not meant for a lot of photography, but in situations where I can't help it, this will come in handy. Right, so this bag also comes with this neat little top. So one of the cool things about it is that I can clip it and I can use this as kind of a voluminous bag without having to, I guess, worry about the organization of it. I can just toss stuff in, roll it up, clip it, and go. It also has this access through zip if I just want to use that. But most of the time I just use this opening here. So the first thing in here is usually just clothes. It's deer hunting season, and I guess hunting season in general in Pennsylvania where I live, and so this comes in really handy. You don't want to go out on hikes without safety, and so if I'm in those state game land areas, these come in really handy. Let's see, a strap for some knee joint issues that I've been having before. So if I go on strenuous hikes and I want to make sure that I don't injure myself, this comes in handy. An extra pair of shirts that I have in here, a pair of gloves, come in handy sometimes. An extra pair of socks, an extra, I guess, layer for warmth. Some hand sanitizer. Never know when I'd want to take a snack and need to wash my hands for anything, so keep that in there. And yeah, this is one of the things that I found pretty useful usually when I'm at home. So when I come from an especially messy trip, I will want to try and clean my equipment, and so this is one of the most useful tools. It comes with a bunch of different things like lens cleaning cloth and some sensor solution and some sensor wipes and things like that. Really essential for any photographer, because you don't want to be managing dust spots all the time. You want to make sure your camera and your lens are in good condition. And so yeah, one of the most underrated pieces of, I guess, gear or stuff that I have within my bag, but used very often and doesn't really take up much space and pretty inexpensive actually. So yeah, definitely worth it. This camera bag also has a pocket for where I usually keep my tripod, which is what I'm using right now to film this. It also has this other slot, and it actually has a pocket that can come out similar to the other one. I don't want to take it out because then I have to put it back in. And yeah, I usually would use that if I have a water bottle or something like that. Most of the time though, it acts as a side access for my camera, which goes here, which I'm actually using to film as well. But yeah, that's my photography gear of 2022. I anticipate that I'll probably buy one or two lenses down the line, maybe a different camera body somewhere in the future, but I really don't think that I need one right now. I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on this as well. So maybe if a deal came along and I was really looking for it, then sure. But yeah, I don't anticipate buying anything more. I just want to be able to maintain this and use it to its maximum potential. All right, so now for the moment of truth, which is how much did I actually spend in this first year of photography? So overall, the total amount comes out to around $2,170, down from the retail value of $3,400. So a little bit over $1,000 worth of savings. But the big thing is I didn't buy a lot of this gear at the very beginning. I didn't buy any of it actually, apart from the camera. From the very beginning, I slowly built up the things as I saw the need for them. I started with a $12 smaller bag, and I still use it from time to time when I don't need to be able to take this big bag and just go on like family trips, for example. But yeah, I think this big bag does come with a lot more convenience. It has a lot of my gear that I can just take with me and allows me to go a lot further on my hikes than the small bag does with its limited capacity. But yeah, if I were to do it all over again, I think I would still progress in the way that I did and continue to make sure that anything that I did buy, I would be able to sell again to other people if I didn't want it anymore. I think that's especially true for the tripod, the camera, and the lens, but obviously I think I'm going to be keeping them. This bag, yeah, I think it weighs, actually I don't know how much it weighs exactly, I just know I can feel the weight, but I'll list it down below. Yeah, it is what it is. I think I could make it a little bit more heavier by adding more stuff to it. I just, like for example, I don't have more lens, or I don't have more tripods or a drone or other stuff like that. But yeah, if I accumulate more stuff, definitely will become heavier. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the gear I talked about, or if you have any advice on what next gear I should purchase. Remember to subscribe, leave a thumbs up down below, but I'll see you next time. Bye.